Mr. Mayor, you are leading the president's legal team in disputing results from several key states. I want to show everyone, including Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada. What are you working on with this team this morning, and what's the game plan for this week?
Well, the game plan for this week is to first to file lawsuits. First one that we'll file is today in the state of Pennsylvania, challenging the entire vote in Pennsylvania on a number of grounds. Let me emphasize the fact that the fake media has for some time said there's no evidence. We've been putting evidence on television every day, including the day after the election. In this lawsuit, we have over 50 witnesses who will say that the vote count, particularly once the election ended that night, and President Trump was ahead by 800,000 votes in Pennsylvania, the count thereafter was unlawful. It was counted behind closed doors. Republicans were not given an opportunity to see any of the mail-in ballots as required by Pennsylvania law. Pennsylvania law requires that for a ballot to be valid, a mail ballot to be valid, it has to be observed by both sides. We have 55 Republicans ready to testify that they were uniformly corralled and weren't able to see a single ballot. They saw a lot of activity, but no ballot. Every one of those ballots that was cast, that was not examined, is now an illegal ballot, an unlawful vote. And it's in the hundreds at this point. That it's not just in Philadelphia, however. Precisely the same thing was done in Pittsburgh. The only difference is when a court intervened in Philadelphia, they didn't follow the court order, and our people were threatened with arrest if we tried to look at the ballots. Whereas in Pittsburgh, halfway through, they allowed some observation. So the numbers in Philadelphia, the numbers of unlawful ballots in Philadelphia are about twice the number in Pittsburgh.
So
and
in Philadelphia,
in the Republican part of
just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, in Philadelphia, I just want to be sure, how far away were these observers kept? Is that the argument there, that they were too far away?
They never got closer than 20 feet, which made it impossible for them to see a single ballot. They actually tried to use binoculars, but then the people turned their backs to them. So even with the binoculars, they weren't able to see. This was a deliberate 2.5 day cover up of the ballots. In other words, this could have been done behind closed doors for how open it was. 20 feet away, you cannot see a small ballot. You can't see if it's 500 with the same handwriting, 300 in the same ink, 200 without any identifying envelope. You just see an envelope get thrown away. So in essence, and the most important thing is, the rules here are set by the state legislature. The state legislature demanded that these be done in the presence of Republican and Democrat inspectors. They were not done in the presence of Republican and Democrat inspectors. In fact, a judge in Philadelphia so ruled. And now we're taking it to federal court to declare those ballots unlawful, which they are, and invalid, which they are. Yeah. And once those are ordered invalid and unlawful,
so that's
President Trump wins Pennsylvania by the landslide he was leading with before they started to count these phony votes.
Okay, so I know that
he was leading on election night by 800,000 votes. We have mathematicians who will tell you it is statistically impossible to have overcome that with the number of votes that were out there. They had to have created new votes in order to do it, and now we have the proof that they did. If these ballots were valid, there is no reason why they couldn't have been made available to the Republican inspectors.
Mr. Mayor, I want to move ahead because you've alleged other examples as well.
Yes,
let's talk about one of them.
We also have a number of incidents, and they're growing. I think they're up to a couple of hundred right now, in which ballots were backdated. So a ballot came in marked November 4. They changed it to November 3. We have post office officials who were told to do that. We have election officials who were told to do that in several parts of the state, not just Philadelphia. The epicenter of the fraud was Philadelphia, which of course would be quite natural. There hasn't been an election in the last 60 years in which Philadelphia Democrats haven't cheated.
What about the Dominion voting system?
Joe Frazier, the ex-heavyweight champ, voted several times after his death in Philadelphia. Will Smith's grandfather has voted several times after his death. Are there also allegations about the voting systems, the Dominion voting systems as well? Do you have any update on that? Now, the Dominion voting system will be the next lawsuit we do, which is well along now in Michigan. The Dominion voting system, literally in one county in Michigan, Antrim County, recorded basically a 2-to-1 vote for Biden. Since it was a Republican county, that seemed rather odd. And when they checked it, they found out that the software was faulty, and it was actually a 2-to-1 vote for Trump. Antrim was used in 3/4 of Michigan. So there is absolutely no basis on which anybody can have any confidence in the vote in Michigan with that Antrim software at the core of their vote counting. In fact, any place that used Antrim software would have to be seriously re-examined now. I mean, how could it be that a vote turns out 2-1 for Biden, and then when you look at the software, it's actually 2-1 for Trump? It happens to be a Canadian company, not an American company. And we are now seriously checking into that. But Michigan also, the votes can be disqualified because in Michigan, Republican inspectors were denied the opportunity to look at a single mail-in ballot. In other words, thousands and thousands of ballots were counted.
Right. Yeah, it clearly sounds like you've got plenty of lawsuits ahead of you here. Mr. Mayor, we just have about 15 seconds. Have you heard from the president? What's he saying right now?
I talked to the president just a few minutes ago. He's very, very upset at this rampant fraud. We don't have to go looking for this fraud, man. They call us. We don't have enough telephone lines to deal with the amount of fraud, including software irregularities by Dominion, which are now beginning to grow beyond Antrim County. And I would say any place that used that software is a place in which the vote is seriously in doubt. If it can flip 2-1 overnight by mistake, then what kind of software is this? And it isn't even American. It comes from Canada.
Yeah, well, you're asking the questions. Any chance the president's watching Newsmax right now?
I would say there's a very good chance the president is watching. The president's also very upset that over the weekend, except for Newsmax, people are saying there's no evidence has been produced. You know, we've been producing evidence and you've been putting it on since the day after the election. The chief inspector in Philadelphia came out the day after the election and explained the fraud that was going on there.
I know.
And gave 50 individuals. We've been producing a mountain of evidence, and the fake news is conducting the same censorship they conducted with the Hunter Biden criminal laptop.
Well, we could talk to you all day, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate you taking the time this morning. Always a pleasure, and keep us updated,
we're headed to
of
court,
course.
And
I know.
We'll get a fair hearing.
All right, you'll keep us updated. Rudy Giuliani, thanks so much.
Thank you.